Good evening, everyone. My name is Hu Chi Yang. I am 16 years old, a sophomore at Tartan Senior High School. I am with Troop 60 from the Silver Maple District. I want to take a moment and thank everyone for this opportunity to speak to you all about my scouting experience. First, a little history of me and my family. My family and I are Hmong. My family came to the United States from Thailand in 1979 to escape hardship and persecution after the Vietnam War. My father told me that he and my grandfather were part of the secret army with General Vang Pao in the United States. General Vang Pao and the U.S. Army had gone to my dad's village and many other villages to ask for their help. After they finished their job, my dad and with many other Hmong were left to fend for themselves against the Vietnamese as they came and attacked the Hmong people because they decided to help the Americans. My father and my grandfather decided at that time that they had to leave and come to the United States in order for our family to be safe. They settled here in Minnesota, and this is where I was born and have grown up and called home for the past 16 years. Believe it or not, scouting is still pretty new to the Hmong community, even though Minnesota has a good majority of Hmong people living here. A lot of Hmong families just don't understand what it is about and what scouting is about. Some just don't have the time or money for it. To some, it's just not as important as focusing on their education. And honestly, all of these things actually happen to apply to me as well. My parents don't understand everything about scouting and may have been a little unsure of me joining at first. My parents don't always have time and money to provide me everything I need in scouting. They prefer that I stay home and work on my homework. But even after all these years, I'm still here, a member of Troop 60. My parents might not know every little thing about scouting, but they've done everything to support me and make sure I continue to grow as a scout, which I am thankful for. In my family, I'm the youngest of 8 children, and no one has actually had the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of scouting as I have. Even though my family doesn't have a long history of scouting like some other families may have, I'm happy to say that I have started that tradition in my family, and I look forward to building on that tradition someday when I'm old enough to have my own family. Beyond my family though, I also want to help get younger kids in my community to be a part of scouting and for them to join because of the reasons I joined. I joined scouting because I love to go camping and doing other outdoors activities such as rock climbing, fishing, and playing sports, even hunting. I don't remember who asked me to join, but all I remember was a couple of my friends saying to me, "Come on, dude, join the Boy Scouts. It's super fun and we do all cool things." Then I thought to myself, maybe I should try it and get away from playing video games all day and being a couch potato. It's been 4 years since I've joined, and I chose to stay because there is nothing better than exploring new things and being in the outdoors, relaxing, hanging out with friends, and making new friends, of course. These are all the kinds of things I want to help get the younger kids in my community to do so they learn new things and grow up to be good people and stay out of trouble. Over the past couple of years, I've done a lot of great things and have done quite a bit of camping. Out of all of them, the one that stands out the most to me was my trip to Philmont in New Mexico. It is a camp where you hike for many miles the majority of the day to one camp in the next while carrying up to 50 pounds on your back. When we went to Philmont, we went with a troop from the El Sol district and quickly made friends with them. During the 2 weeks there we were together, we were one big troop together and we became like family. Philmont was a really great experience and that I hope to experience again sometime in the future. The long hikes, hot days, rainy days, the scenery, and being unable to shower for 2 weeks are just the few things I'll never forget about. Trust me, a fully functional bathroom with a toilet, sink, and shower with running water is one of the things I'll never ever take for granted again. There's also one other thing I probably will never forget about Philmont. While at Philmont, and after a long hike, our friend Surian got dehydrated and was unable to continue our hike with us. He was weak and vomiting, and we were all worried that something might happen to him. Since he had to be taken to the infirmary to recover, we went a few days without seeing him, and we hoped and prayed for him. We all felt helpless, and we waited and hoped for good news of his recovery. After a few days, we were finally able to see him again. He was up and about, joking around and laughing with us, trying to play it off cool like nothing has ever even happened to him. We were all so relieved and thankful that he had recovered. If there was tears shed that day, they were tears of joy for us. I didn't cry, but maybe some other guys cried. We were all happy to see our friend and our brother with us again. This was definitely a reason or a lesson that we have learned from and become closer from, and it has affected us all in one way or another. Due to this particular experience and what happened to my friend, and just overall the trip to Philmont, I felt like scouting has motivated me, helped me to be a better person, and has challenged me to be the best that I can in all aspects of my life. Philmont itself was challenging experience for me, and I think if I didn't give it my all, I wouldn't have made it through the long 2 weeks there. In the upcoming years, I look forward to more opportunities to talk, relax, and have a good time with my friends while camping. One camp in particular I look forward to attending later this summer is Northern Tier, and Northern Tier is located near the Boundary Waters. There we will canoe to one campsite, spend the night, and then wake up and do the same thing every day for 1 week. I also look forward to Sea Base, which is located in Florida, and there we will get to stay on a boat or on an island and survive on our own for 1 week. Most importantly, I look forward to earning my Eagle rank because it will show people what I'm capable of, and it will show the people who said I couldn't do anything that I can do something. I also believe it will help me out for future jobs or colleges I apply for, because being an Eagle Scout will show people that I can commit to doing something and that I can accomplish any task at hand. I'm currently a life rank. I hope to finish my Eagle requirements and my Eagle project as soon as possible. For my project, I would like to coordinate a blood drive with the American Red Cross because giving back to my community is very important to me and will help me reach my goal of becoming an Eagle Scout. I know it will make a lot of people proud of me, but it will also give me something to look back at and make me proud before I go out and do other things after I finish high school. And the saying goes, it's not always about reaching your destination. It's about the journey you went on to get here. I've enjoyed the time I've spent with my friends and the bonds we have built over the years. We've had our ups and downs as a troop, but at the end of the day, we're all stuck together. We, at our troops, earlier this year at our Troops Court of Honor, my Scoutmaster, Dan, in addition to the rank badges and merit badges that we received that day, our Scoutmaster Dan presented each and one of us our very own dog tags, which is the one I'm wearing right now. On it has our names, birth date, and the bottom it says Boy Scout Troop 60. We all really liked the dog tags and thought they were really cool. Seeing everyone in the troop wear them symbolized to me how much we all become one big family. Dan, our Scoutmaster, has also said from that day on that it should be a part of our uniform. In addition to the Scout uniform, all the patches we wear, and this neckerchief, and these awesome green pants I have on right now. Yep. We wearing the dog tags symbolized that we were Troop 60 as a family, but also my promise as a scout to do my best, to do my duty, to guide in my country, to obey the scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. As I continue to live day by day according to the scout law and promise, I have come to realize how lucky I am and how thankful I am for the opportunities that I've had over the past years. My parents came to the U.S. for a better life and better opportunities so that I didn't have to go through the struggles that they did. Coming from an immigrant family and being different from a lot of kids that I'm around at school, it has always been a struggle to keep my own culture alive and be a part of the American tradition, especially one like scouting. However, I believe that it has made a big difference in my life and an opportunity that I am glad I did not pass up on. Speaking in front of a big crowd like how I'm doing right now, tonight, is also one of the rare opportunities I know I'll never regret passing up on. So again, I want to thank all of you for listening to my story and how scouting has become part of my life. Thank you all and have a great evening.
So we are here for the grand moment here to recognize Chris and the great work that he does in our community. I was asking some of you here tonight at dinner in the last couple of days, knowing that we'd have this event, I was asking a number of colleagues at the bank that I've been traveling around a bit, and I asked them, when I say the word Boy Scout, what do you think of? So I'm going to ask you this for a second. When I say the word Boy Scout, what do you think of? And the words that come along are individual, they're dependent, they're accountable, they're honest, they're integrity. And then I had the chance to speak to a couple of people for a few minutes, and we kept kind of drilling down on what that meant. We came to a great conclusion that we're talking about civility. And ladies and gentlemen, could you want anything more right now in this great country's moment in time than civility? And so what we're doing here tonight is we're sponsoring and supporting into the future this remarkable organization called the Boy Scouts. People like John that come to work every day to make this program happen because we're behind them every step of the way. And the ROI, the return on investment, remarkable. You're seeing a little bit of it here tonight with Jose and Huchi. But most importantly, we're contributing to the future of America. Civility is one of the most important things that we should seek and celebrate and protect. And maybe never more than in an election year, it becomes more evident that we need to make sure that this wonderful era, this next generation of understanding what it's like to be in a brotherhood, in a fraternity, in a sorority, to be together with one mission. Tonight, that's what we're celebrating, and all of your support and your presence here tonight makes that happen. So tonight we're here to recognize the Distinguished Citizenship Award. Distinguished? Maybe. Citizen? Oh my God, yes. I looked up citizen, and citizen is to be connected, a human connected to their community. I looked up civility, and honestly, it says to be civil and to lead in your community. Tonight we're talking about community. Tonight we're talking about this wonderful program. And young men and older men, this is the guy. This is your role model tonight. This is what we're talking about. If there were a man scout, you would be the man scout. And I gotta tell you, I learned fewer things tonight than Huchi said, dude, join the Boy Scouts. We're gonna have a great time. I mean, what could be a better slogan? John, you ought to pick up on that. So tonight we recognize Chris for the embodiment of all the things that matter in this great country, starting with the Boy Scouts and what they represent. A couple of things about Chris. With this award, he recognizes his time and talent in this community and follows a number of other people like Phil Heasley, Richard Schultz, Gerald Rauenhorst, Warren Staley, and Warren's here. Warren, please stand to be recognized. You're one of our heroes. Where are you? Warren and Mary Lynn, where are you? Where are you? There they are. Thank you for being here. Janet Dolan, Dick Kelly, Jeff Noddle, Jim Humphrey, Mary Brainerd, Doug Baker, and Greg Page. And tonight, Chris Policinski. He's the president and CEO of Land O'Lakes. He joined in 1997. He's been in the food industry for over 30 years. He was made CEO in 2005. That's code word for through all the difficult times. He's doubled the company since he joined it. If you don't know what it is, it's a farm cooperation. It's a co-op. His bosses are more than there are people in the room. It's a Fortune 200 company with $13 billion in annual revenues, 10,000 employees worldwide, 2,000 right here in Arden Hills. We know him as the sweet cream butter guy. There was a Christmas one year that Chris decided to give out Christmas gifts, and they were like a love kit of all the Land O'Lakes stuff. With all the respect to the rest of us to give away Christmas gifts, Teresa said it was the best gift she ever had. By the way, we haven't seen it in a while, so that was my pitch for another Christmas gift. Land O'Lakes is one of our great products and proud partners here in the Twin Cities. We don't talk about it as much as we should, but tonight's a great night to put a little bit of force onto that. It's called Farm to Fork Spectrum. They deal with teaching the farmers to be better at what they do. They deal with making what they produce that go onto our tables better for all of us. Their purpose is feeding human progress. I like that, feeding human progress. He's a civic leader. He's run the United Way campaign. My notes say he ran the best United Way campaign in the history of the United Way campaign. That kills me because I ran it a couple of years later or whatever. He and Ann, his wife, who's here tonight, thank you, Ann, for being this great partner, supported the United Way 100th anniversary that we just finished under the leadership of John and Nancy Lindahl. He supported the Heart Association. He's led the campaign for the Children's Heart Link. He just recently, under Land O'Lakes banner, gave $25 million to University of Minnesota. And they have both recently been honored as the Tocqueville Award for Outstanding Civic Leadership. So it just encircles you. Land O'Lakes is a true partner for the Scouts. They're a partner for this community. They embody everything we want to celebrate here tonight. You heard it said earlier tonight, but the motto, and Greg Page said it on the video, is to be prepared for life, and to be feeding human progress on a night where we're talking about the future that hasn't happened yet, instilled in the eyes and the beliefs and the integrity of these young men and people like Seymour who give of their time to make sure that their lives are different because of it. Well, it just doesn't get better than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's our privilege to be in the presence of you tonight, to be celebrating something like the Boy Scouts, but to put all of our energy around the one guy tonight that we celebrate as the embodiment of all those good things and this great place called America. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring to the stage Chris Policinski, our distinguished citizen for 2016.
Richard, thank you for those very, very nice comments, and most importantly, thank you for the hard work and effort you put into leading this campaign. You were complimentary to this great organization and the Northern Star Council, but it does take time, effort, and energy to do this, and to raise $500,000 for the Scouts tonight is very, very special, so thank you. John, a formal thank you to you and the Northern Star Council and all involved for the recognition. I really do view this as a special honor, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. So thank you, and I'd like to continue my formal remarks with a few additional important thank yous. First, thank you to the Scouts and all here who were involved in Scouting. Scouting, in my view, represents really the very best of America. Think about this. For decades upon decades, volunteers give their time and their treasure to help the next generation of leaders in this country. That's very special, and that's part of what makes this country great. And I have to tell you, and I'll come back to this later, 100 years ago, Scouting meant one thing, and an important thing at that period of time. Today, I think it is equally important and maybe even more relevant to society, building a little bit on Richard's comments, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I also want to thank past award recipients. You mentioned Greg Page, last year's recipient, Warren Staley, Richard, yourself, who are here, for setting the bar very, very high for folks in the Twin Cities like myself with respect to getting involved in the community. Frankly, it's easy to get involved in the community because if you don't, you stand out. Now think about that. Think about that if you're in New York or Chicago. If you don't, nobody really notices. Why? You don't have that strong peer group that's engaged. So I want to thank you, previous Distinguished Citizen recipients, for your great standard that you set for community involvement. I also want to thank the donors and volunteers in attendance. You are the lifeblood, and Richard mentioned this, of the Boy Scouts. Think about this. This organization is staffed 99.75%, roughly, by volunteers. 99.75% of the Boy Scout staffing is volunteer staffing. That's incredible. And as Richard said, and as John said, tonight, the fundamental purpose is to raise funds. And I thank you for your generosity of your time and your treasure. A couple more personal thank yous. First to the Land O'Lakes crowd that is here. I am here tonight in a very real way because of the standard you set of community involvement. And I thank you for that. That is very important to our community, to our business, and to all of you. So thank you. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my wife, Ann. The best friend and the best partner you could ever hope for. So now let me get back to my comment about relevance and the Scouts being as relevant and as important today as ever. And to set the context for that, let's step back to when Scouting, as we know it, was formed, 1907, overseas in the UK. It came to the US in 1910. There was a Scouting organization formed in Washington, D.C. That very same year, 2 Scouting organizations were formed here in the Twin Cities, one in St. Paul and one in Minneapolis. And at that time, and I want to read, the St. Paul Pioneer Press explained in its first account of the Boy Scout movements, and I quote, "The Scouts are boys banded together in their different cities, towns, neighborhoods to learn how to have a good time and to learn other things that every boy should know." Now, since the turn of the century, the connotation of a good time may or may not have changed a bit. But what has not changed is the notion of what you need to know to be prepared for life. And that quote from the Pioneer Press got me thinking about what has changed with the Scouts over the years to remain relevant, to prepare those for life. And the first thing I'll comment on is the Scouts themselves, the name. Notice I said Scouts, not Boy Scouts, because some 46 years ago, nearly 5 decades ago, the wise leaders of the Boy Scouts said it's not just boys who need to be prepared for life, but it's young girls as well. So they opened their arms to include young girls in all the benefits of Scouting. Let's also consider the motto, "Be prepared." Back at the turn of the century, 3% of Americans went to college. So you can envision a lot of what the Scouts did at that point in time was to get youth ready to enter the workforce. What do you need to do to be prepared to go to high school to get a job? And if you're fortunate enough to be in the 3%, good for you. But what about today? Turn the clock forward 100 years. In our complex, dynamic, tech-driven workforce, what do we need today? What does the Scouting organization do to prepare individuals who want to go from high school into the workforce, or maybe want to go into our technical schools in community college in the great MINSCU system, or want to go on? 31% of our young people do go on to college at great institutions like the University of Minnesota. How do you prepare kids for this complex workforce where we need different jobs? Well, I'll tell you what the Scouts have done. They've got an Explorer program. John, I think you involve 3,000 kids in this program, and they give him real world, in-business experience so they can self-select, and they can figure out where they want to be. Do they want to go down that path through high school and get a job? Do they want to go to the community and technical college and go to MINSCU? Or do they want to go on to higher education like the University of Minnesota? This is a big deal. The Scouts are there. Same idea of 100 years ago. Very, very different execution. How about looking at the Scout oath that pledges to help people at all times? And here I'll use an ag example. At turn of the century, I can envision where there was over 20 million working animals on farms. To get the work done on the farm, it might have meant figure out how to help that neighbor who was on vacation and need their work animals cared for. Today, what does it mean? Well, I don't know. I think you might be able to earn your computer science badge by coming to a middle-aged citizen's house and helping them with their internet connection. That's an offer. I'll give you my address later. Point being, the mindset of helping out one's neighbor hasn't changed a bit in 100 years. What Scouts do, and the fact that there is a merit badge, which I learned from John earlier, for computer science, tells you this organization is relevant and as relevant today and as vibrant today as it's ever been. How about the Scout oath that mentions keeping oneself physically strong? Again, back to agriculture at the turn of the century when a quarter of America farmed. That probably meant having a strong back to help out on the farm. But what does it mean today? What does it mean today back to this complex workforce that we have and the complex world we live in? Physical strength? Yeah. Mental strength? Yeah. Resiliency? Yeah. The ability to work in teams? Yeah. Now think about what the Scouts did to build the base camp. And think about what's going to happen with this very generous $4 million gift to add to that base camp. Are the Scouts relevant today? Absolutely. Absolutely relevant. How about part of the Scout oath that says, and it sounds a little old-fashioned, keeping oneself morally straight? Well, you know, at the turn of the century, think about what that meant. You're a kid growing up in Minnesota. You probably had grandparents next door. Traditional family, mom and dad, siblings, aunts, uncles. They all helped keep you morally straight. Turn the clock 100 years forward. I don't know if there's any more or less temptation. I think there's probably always been temptation. But one thing that's different for sure is you probably don't have that extended family in your backyard. In fact, a quarter of kids now grow up in single-parent households, and another 5% of kids grow up in a household that doesn't have either parents, but they live with a relative. Different household. It requires different support structures. Think about where the Boy Scouts, the Scouts, fit into that world. So are the Scouts relevant? Yes. Relevant then, relevant now. And by the way, those examples I gave you, you can broaden. Think about some of the folks that we've mentioned tonight, the previous Distinguished Citizen Award winners, Greg Page, Warren Staley, Richard Davis. And think about some of the language we use around Scouts. Greg Page had a great quote in his comments last year that was on the video, and I probably won't get it quite right, but he said, "I think I learned everything I needed to learn to be CEO and chairman of Cargill as a Boy Scout." Well, I suspect he learned a few things after his scouting years to make him successful at that. But think about one of the principles of scouting, loyalty, and think about Greg as a 40-year employee of the great organization Cargill and how that served him through his career. Pretty relevant, I think. Warren Staley. Warren is here. Another Cargill chairman and CEO. Think about the word duty. Warren ran a pretty darn good business. Duty to run the good business. But I think he had a broader view of duty, and he viewed part of his duty was to improve the world around him. And he took, with Cargill's footprint, volunteer teams around the world to do things like help 150,000 kids in Kenya who needed medical treatment, medicine, to build fully equipped schools in Vietnam. And I could go on, there's a long list here. But now think about duty, and the duty not just to run a business, but to do beyond that. And let me end my comments about past Distinguished Citizen recipients with Richard and a Boy Scout theme of bravery. Now, Richard, you have to be brave to be a CEO of a bank in today's world, no matter what. That in itself is an act of bravery. But for you, those of you that know Richard, he runs what I think is the best bank in America by a wide margin. That's brave, and I'm not kidding. In today's world, there are a lot of twists and turns to being the CEO of a bank. But I'll tell you what else is brave about Richard. He's brave in terms of engaging in society. If you look at things that are going on in the Twin Cities, be it getting funding to build a stadium, be it bringing a Super Bowl, working on some sticky issues that we've got in our community, or engaging in the legislative process to highlight how important it is to have transportation and transit funding for not just today, but for the future. It'd be pretty easy to say I'm busy, but it takes a version of bravery to say I'm going to engage in those topics. So I say that not so much for Greg or Warren or Richard to hear, because they know that, but I say that for the Scouts here, because the things that you are learning as a Scout, the things that you're practicing now as a Scout, will serve you well at every chapter of your life, and will serve you well when you are sitting in the chairs of those leaders of our community when you're at that age. So let me end by saying thank you again, John, to you and the Northern Star Council. I really am honored to be recognized like this. It is special. And very importantly, thank you to all of you involved in Scouting, the Scouts, and all of you who volunteer or support the organization with your treasure. This really does represent the best of what America has to offer. Thank you.